Have you spent a significant amount of time living outside your passport country during your developmental years? Do you come from an expat, military, diplomat, missionary, or international business family background? If so, then this podcast is for you.
Welcome to the TCK Research Podcast, where we discuss the current state of research on third culture kids, cross-culture kids, expat families, and international life in general.
My name is Andrea Schmidt, and I've been an expat for over 30 years, having lived in a total of 9 countries. I'm a coach for TCK girls, and I'm currently completing my master's degree in psychology.
And I'm Mathieu Gagnon, an adult third culture kid who grew up in 6 countries until the age of 15. And I'm now a professor of psychology in Ontario, Canada.
Every episode, we bring you a fascinating conversation with a leading researcher in the field.
If you're listening on YouTube or another platform, please subscribe to our channel. And if you enjoyed this episode, please press the thumbs up or like button, share it on your social media platforms, or send it to a friend.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can reach us at tckresearchpod@gmail.com.
Let's jump right in.
Enjoy the podcast.
Today's guests are, well, us, Andrea Schmidt and Mathieu Gagnon. We are the guests and the hosts because this is our 1-year anniversary retrospective episode. Enjoy, everybody. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the TCK Research Podcast. This is our 12th episode. We are celebrating our 1-year anniversary. And today we have 2 very special guests that are close to our hearts, people without whom we couldn't have made this happen. The first guest is...
without you.
Couldn't have done it without you guys. And the first guest is Andrea Schmidt. Hello, Andrea.
Thank you so much for welcoming me. And our second guest is Mathieu Gagnon. Where
You
are
don't
you?
say.
Yes.
You
So
don't
where are you
say.
calling in from, Mathieu?
I am calling in from Kingston, Ontario. What about you?
Calling in from Cancun, Mexico.
Yes. Well, wonderful guests indeed. So,
Yes, the best.
for folks listening, this is a retrospective episode to celebrate our first year anniversary. Oh, Andrea, we forgot the party hats.
Oh, we did.
I was supposed to have a pointy hat, so people must imagine me with a pointy hat like this. Do you have yours?
No,
Okay.
I wanted to wear our family birthday crown, which I forgot. The only thing that I can bring on is a Lego rose.
Well, there you go. A Lego
There you go.
rose to
A Lego
celebrate. So,
rose. Exactly.
viewers, please imagine us with a party hat, and listeners,
And a birthday
you can do the
crown.
same. Yeah, and a birthday crown. But the idea that what we wanted to do is to really get together and kind of celebrate our first year, our first birthday with a retrospective episode, because we've interviewed so many wonderful guests over the last year, and we wanted to
11.
just 11 of them indeed. And so it's important sometimes to just stop and be thankful, and also think about what did we learn, what do we want for the future, and so on.
Yep.
We're going to start, of course, I believe, Andrea, with a little retrospective review where we talk about each episode, right?
Exactly.
And so
we're going to do that in
listeners,
chronological order.
in chronological order, even though behind the curtain fact, we printed them in non-chronological order, so it's going to be difficult to kind of switch. But the idea here, folks, is that we want you to get a quick sense of each of the episodes, so you can then go and listen to the whole actual thing if you haven't had a chance to do it, because we know you're busy and so on, and we're a small niche podcast. We still have to grow. So you might not have listened to all episodes, but here you get a chance to get a sense of all topics. And then what are we going to do after that, Andrea?
I need to add something. We are not going into detailed facts of the episodes, but we're mentioning the researcher and give you the gist.
Mhm.
Then we're going to answer questions
Answer
each other. So
questions.
everybody, you and me, we will answer the same question. Um, and that's going to be an interesting one. So if you want to
Mhm.
get our personal take on the episodes, personal facts from our families, then please wait until the end. That's when we're going to answer the
Mhm.
questions
There's
related to the
a lot of
podcast.
juicy details
Yes, yes,
about the
yes. Behind the
podcasting
scenes,
life.
funny moments, and all that.
Yes. And those were not printed in non-chronological order, so it's going to be easy to.
Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
then. Shall we get
Okay.
going?
Yes, let's get going.
All right. So let's get going with our retrospective of all 12 episodes. I believe you wanted to start by talking a little bit about the first one.
Yes, I am the one who's going to talk about episode number one. So we kicked off the podcast journey by interviewing Shara Hartman, who called in from South Dakota,
That's right.
USA. Her research focused on adult third culture kids, so abbreviated with ATCKs, who lived then internationally as missionary children in Africa and attended boarding schools. The
Mhm.
episode highlights the importance for global, globally mobile families, um, and that it's very important to consider the age and readiness of children before sending them to boarding school. It also suggests that um, enriching boarding school experiences can positively shape their identity, relationship, and career outlooks for TCKs. So,
Mhm.
this is a very interesting episode. If you're thinking about sending your children to boarding school, if you sent your children to boarding school, if you have any relation whatsoever to boarding schools, I found it very, very interesting. And it was a good first one to kick the season off with.
Yeah, I just thought I just kind of put myself back there, and I remember the feeling
Yeah,
of like, oh my God, we did it. This is the first episode. This is
the
actually really
first
cool.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so of course we release episodes monthly. So then a month went by, and then we released episode two. And in episode two, we spoke to Dr. Magdalena Mosania, and this is going to be a theme, by the way, because it's wonderful to meet people of different origins, but sometimes the names are difficult to remember or pronounce
So we
because
butcher
you're not
them.
used to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Magdalena Mosania, who called in from Dubai, I believe, where she works as a professor at Murdoch University. And Magdalena's episode was a great one because she spoke to us about her interest in the way that people with multicultural identities, so for example, TCKs, if you grew up in many countries, you might have kind of a multicultural identity. How do you organize that? Do you take it all in and say, this is all my identity? Do you parse things out and say, I didn't live there for enough time, so that's not part of my identity, but these two countries are, and so on. And so
Mhm.
she spoke to us about how to measure that actually scientifically, you know, with a pen and paper survey. Um, and she actually related to us how the way that people's multicultural identity are organized, how people think about their multicultural identity, actually
Mhm.
might correlate or be associated with their views about other things. Like, for example, their views about ecocentrism, which is the fact that you are concerned for the well being of nature, their views about anthropocentrism, which is whether you believe that nature should be subservient to human needs, and so we can take advantage of nature for the economy, and it doesn't really matter. And so she showed that actually the way you organize your multicultural identity might be linked to things like your attitude towards climate change, for example, which I thought was a fascinating thing because that's something I had never considered.
That was triple what you wrote down, you would say.
Hey, there's a lot of magic happening, folks. I wrote something
Yeah.
down, but then I let myself go. I will be more succinct, listeners and viewers, for the next one. And for Andrea.
Just for you to know, I wanted to time Mathieu, but he didn't want me to. So, well, there we go.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. I take the next episode, which was episode 3, with
Mm,
Chloe Donahue, who called in from London, UK. Her research was about is about growing up as a TCK affects the themes of identity and belonging, two very prominent themes in the TCK realm. Um, and they repeatedly emerge in scientific literature. So not only are those discussions in the family between friends and at conferences, but they're being researched. One of the most researched ones. A TCK's identity is often influenced by identity negotiation, for example, when TCKs frequently adjust their behavior so they might fit in
mhm.
and not stand out. And Chloe mentions that most TCKs clearly and easily identify with multiple cultures simultaneously. So if you want to put them into a box, that doesn't work. They know that they are multicultural
It's
beings.
going to be one
We
large box
discussed
made of other boxes. Sorry,
exactly. And there we
it's your
go,
turn, not
puzzle.
mine.
So we discussed the concept of belonging everywhere and nowhere, in the sense that TCKs can adapt in many places, but often lack a deeper sense of belonging in one particular place. If you're a parent of a TCK, if you are a TCK, we would recommend this episode because you'll find practical insights that are useful while you're traveling or maybe growing up abroad. Hand it over
That's
to you.
right. Episode 4. Episode 4, we spoke to Dr. Jenny German-Molt, who called in from Massachusetts, I believe, where she's a professor at the College of the Holy Cross. And she introduced us to a weird and wonderful concept that we had no idea existed, which is world schooling and world schoolers and emotional geography. So, the bottom line is Jenny studied people who basically take their children out of school in order to travel with them around the world and let the travel experiences be the teachers themselves, in a sense. Now,
Mhm.
of course, the parents are not completely uninvolved, but the parents have to kind of negotiate how the travel is going to act as a teacher and so on. So it's a fascinating thing to think about. And Jenny even tried this herself with her
Mm.
husband and her son. I believe that she traveled to all 7 continents, probably for close to a year, or maybe just a little bit less, and met all sorts of world schoolers. And so, if you're interested in the world schooling possibility and doing it yourself, or listening to how information about what actually it is, please refer to episode 4. I think you'll be fascinated. Was that shorter?
Yeah,
That was shorter. Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
good.
a little bit shorter, yeah.
A
And I just
little
want to
bit
say, when you
shorter.
said world schooling, homeschooling came to mind, which of course is a concept that we
Yeah,
now know about, but world schooling, yeah, was definitely new.
yeah, very
Okay,
interesting.
my take on episode 5, where we talked to Claire Datoma, who called in from Virginia in the US. Her research focus is on TCK parenting, in which she especially examined expat mothers in expat families and how they develop unique parenting strategies when raising children outside of their passport countries. So we discussed how these mothers develop a parenting style that is tailored to the liminal, so the in between social, cultural, and geographical context. That's what living abroad is all about. She
Yeah.
mentioned 3 paradoxes, which I will mention only one. So a paradox of third culture parenting is, for example, on one hand, creating belonging because you move so often, you try to form a sense of belonging in your home, a sense of continuity for your children, despite the frequent moves. And yet, on the other hand, you do rely on the external expatriate communities, the international schools your children attend, so that's one of the paradoxes she mentions that we as families find ourselves in,
Mm,
and which can be yeah, they're pulling you to different opposite sides. A valuable discussion if you find yourself parenting abroad.
Yes, and that episode made me think of my mom a lot.
Right. Uh-huh.
Because I had never really, we talk about third culture kids, but what about the
Yeah.
parents? You
Yeah. And
know?
I was thinking about myself, of course, that she
Yeah.
put research into what I felt so often while living abroad.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Then we moved on to episode six. Episode six was really cool because it basically was about a specific type of third culture kid called
Hmm.
Confucian Asian adult third culture kids. So to
Yeah.
learn more about this group, we spoke to Dr. Yuima Mizutani, who at the time, I believe, called in from St. Louis, Missouri, where she was an assistant professor, but now she's moved on, I think, to Cincinnati University, where she's a professor there at the University of Cincinnati. And Yuima, so she introduced us to the concept and the experiences of Confucian Asian adult third culture kids. So basically, she was looking at college students from countries of Confucian Asian heritage, so
Mhm.
China, Korea, and so on. And she showed us how this rarely studied group of TCKs have lives that are not only shaped by the traditional things that we think about when we think about TCKs, high mobility and so on, but also their cultural values of Confucian societies, such as filial piety and loyalty, which is something that you don't doesn't necessarily show up as much in TCKs from more Western societies. So we thought that was
Mhm.
really interesting, of course, and how this mix kind of between their Confucian Asian heritage and also the fact that they're TCKs, how this mix affects their identity making, their belonging, their connection, and their well-being also
Mhm.
during the college years. So that was for episode six.
Mhm. A very interesting one as well. Yeah.
Hmm.
Episode
Exposode.
seven. Episode seven was again about expat families. It was a discussion with Dr. Moiska Filipic Sterle, who called in from Brussels in Belgium. She
Mhm.
reviewed in her paper Expat Family Adjustment Challenges and Resources. But she highlights the research findings on the psychological, relational, and social challenges faced by the entire expat family. So not only, let's say, on the working expat, not only on the accompanying spouse, and not only on the children, but as a family as a whole.
Mhm.
Their review underscores the need to understand family adjustment as a dynamic process, which is shaped by the interplay between all the individual family members, the family unit as a unit, and of course, the cultural context, which, yeah,
Mhm.
it changes when it changes. We were talking about spillover and crossover effects, which were very interesting to hear, which are sort of intuitive, but it was interesting to read, to discuss it regarding her research. So when stress or satisfaction is experienced as by one family member can cross over or spill over to other members or
Yeah,
the family as a whole.
yeah,
So this episode focuses on the family as a whole and then each member. So yeah, of course, what happens in the family to one member can
yeah.
influence everyone.
Yeah, a very important episode because we
Yeah,
often think about expats as the workers themselves, but what about their
yeah,
families and so on?
yeah. So that is
Yeah.
all interlinked. Yeah.
And then we followed up with episode eight with doctors, because that was our first episode where we had two guests,
Yeah.
doctors Courtney Jaboy and Sanjay Nath. Courtney called in from sunny San Diego, and Sanjay called in from rainy Philadelphia. Now, I just said that because I thought that sounded cool, but I don't
Yeah.
actually know if
We're
like
making things
Philadelphia is
up.
known for rain. Apologies if it isn't, Sanjay. And they spoke about their interest for what they call multi-country immersers. So these are people who live in at least three countries or more,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's not just that they live there and didn't really immerse themselves in the culture. They need to live in more than three countries or more, and also really immerse themselves in the culture, right? And so they call these
Yeah.
people multi-country immersers, or MCIs.
Mm-hmm.
And they were basically looking at how these multi-country immersers develop their identity through time. And they were interested in this thing that they call transnational identity, which is an identity that's kind of like fluid and complex and takes into account many cultures and also evolves through time. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, in their paper, they had a spiral of identity, which Andrea really enjoyed. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is with you and spirals.
Yeah.
Is it the
Maybe
fact that
them
you're in
spirals.
Mexico and you have many tornadoes there? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe,
Um,
maybe spiraling up, spiraling down.
there you go. And so they did a wonderful job explaining how this complex identity developed and how it's shaped by processes like, well, at different levels, basically, what
Mm,
happens in the person's heads at the psychological level, what happens related to their relationships at the social level, and also more broadly at the cultural level
mm,
as well.
mm. And the immersing, I think there was one of the criterias was a minimum of 3 years, right?
Yes, I
Yeah,
think that was it
right.
too. Yeah, you
So
need to have
not
stayed a
not
minimum of three
yeah.
years. Yeah,
So that is a long time, and that is also what I felt very often. There is a certain threshold you sort of pass,
yeah,
and then you sort of feel differently in a country.
yeah.
Yeah.
You
So
start laying
I
roots
felt
a bit.
very seen. I felt very
Yeah.
seen in that episode as well. Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good.
But you stayed as well in many countries for longer, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I never stayed less than 3 years in a country,
See,
years or
there you
more.
go.
So yeah,
So we're
I
both
was a multi-country immerser,
MCIs. Exactly. We
an
can give
MCI,
ourselves
TCK,
all these.
MCI. That's too many letters. TCK,
Okay,
MCI,
hold on a second.
PhD.
MCI ATCK PhD.
Oh my God, that's too many
I think,
letters.
yeah, definitely. It
I got
shows
the
that
whole
you have a
alphabet to
lot of
myself here.
knowledge. A lot of knowledge.
Too much
Okay,
knowledge.
too much knowledge. Okay, my turn.
Your turn.
Episode 9. That was a discussion with Dr. Ragnhild Holman Bjørnsen, who called in
Yes.
from Lillehammer in Norway, regarding emotional expectations like of diplomat kids, diplomat TCKs, framing them as privileged and lucky and having implicit feeling rules like, oh, you should be happy and grateful for the life you're living. We also discussed the assumption of privilege among diplomatic TCKs. So the pressure of appearing happy, hiding your sadness, appearing grateful. And Ragnhild shared how all the aforementioned and an outside perspective of the TCK experience of living this glamorous and exotic life
Yeah, exotic.
can
Yeah.
complicate the upbringing abroad for TCKs.
Hmm.
All this, of course, shapes the emotional life of children. And the
Yeah.
insights we talked about included, for example, recognition and criticism, examining these challenges. And we also discussed, luckily, support and coping strategies for TCK. So,
Yeah.
another episode that if you're living an
Yeah.
expat lifestyle and you want to learn how best support your kids, this would be a very good one to listen to.
Yeah, and how to be aware that they're likely to be met with the assumption of privilege by
Exactly,
other adults and
exactly.
other peers
Yeah,
and so on. Yeah.
yeah,
Which
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, of course there is some privilege in traveling the world, but it's not all it's not all you know.
Exactly. Not all pink and
Um
rosy.
yeah, exactly. Then we followed up with episode 10 where we met and we had the great pleasure of getting to know Dr. Kristen Long, who called in from New York, where she works as a psychoanalyst and also a creative arts therapist. And Kristen introduced us to the idea that expressive arts therapy can be used to help third culture kids process and make sense of their story, their complex stories, their identity, and so on. And she kind of brought a kind of a case study where she showed us, she talked to us about three specific cases.
Mhm.
She switched the names, of course, and stuff like that. So don't worry, folks, it's all done the correct way. But she relayed three specific cases from her practice that really helped us understand how creativity, play, curiosity, emotional attunement can be really powerful tools to drive meaning making and resilience in TCKs of different ages, right? Because she had very young ones and she had up
Mm,
to, I believe, a late teenager, I think. So it was just a fantastic episode, very different about play and creativity in the service of well-being of TCKs and their
yeah,
parents
very
as well.
interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely did a completely different approach. A very, very interesting one. Yeah, and our last episode for now was episode 11 with Katja Egerter, who called in from Bern, Basel. And we discussed her paper on the impact of various non-work expatriation stressors on the well-being of partners for the
Yep.
um, accompanying working expat abroad. So expat spouses, expat partners accompanying the working partner. The stressors were perceived stress, social support, isolation, cultural distance, and Katja's research suggests that expat families would benefit from tailored support before, during, and after the relocation. So it would be helpful to recognize that individual personality differences affect how the partners adapt abroad. Um,
Mm, yeah.
so this was also a very important one because often the expat partner is being studied, but this one it was the accompanying spouse, and she went into a lot of detail. And it was we had a very good discussion with her. So if you are an expat
Mhm.
partner or want to know more about your accompanying partner, please listen to this episode.
Mhm. And this leads us to episode 12, which is this one, basically,
Yes, which
in
is
which
this
two
one.
fantastic people discussed 11 other episodes. I should say, though, Andrea, even though this is not in our notes, I listeners might be interested in knowing that all of these wonderful people we interviewed, so many of them are either adult third culture kids themselves
Yeah, yeah.
or have married third culture kids or for some they're not necessarily third culture kids at all, but they
They
just through
bring up third culture kids.
yeah, they were
Yeah.
just confronted with this reality in their work or something like that. And
Mm,
so that was really cool too, also to meet fellow people who have had this experience and who have decided to
yeah,
actually make something of it. Hmm.
yeah, exactly. They were all like they say, research is me search, right?
Research is me
So
search, yes
yeah,
indeed.
so I think this applied to all of these researchers. And this is not one of our 20, 100,000 questions that we're going
No,
to
no, so
answer in
so
a
now,
moment. So
dear
what about
listener,
you?
well, dear listeners, if we had a sound module that I could use now, it would be like a game show sound going, and I would say, and
Yeah,
now it's time for the lightning questions. So we're going to
exactly,
move into
exactly.
the question round, and I suggest you start by asking the first one because I'm answering first
Yes,
based on our sheet here. And
exactly. Yeah,
so,
that
so what
would have
question
been
do you have
my
for me,
suggestion
Andrea?
as
And I'm
well.
I'm going to
Oh,
pretend
I
like
have
I don't know the question in advance. Go
yeah,
ahead.
just do. Okay.
Hmm.
Make it easy. This question is for the both of us. So I'm gonna ask
Mhm.
it first and you answer first. It is the
Sure.
following question. Which topic did you find yourself thinking about long after the episode was over? Mathieu.
Right. Let me think. Let me consult my sheet. Yeah, there were so many. There's so many,
Yeah.
but we had to pick one particular one.
Yes.
So one particularly that hit me the most and that I found myself thinking about was the paper by Dr. Ragnhild Holman Bjornsson, episode 9, on the assumption of privilege and also
Mm,
emotional rules in diplomatic
mm,
third culture kids. Part of it, part of the reason why is because that's my story as well, right? I was a
right.
diplomatic third culture kid, and there's a lot of stuff about emotion there that she talked about that hit me. A lot of stuff about how this shows up in the body, even
Mm,
that hit me as well. Um, um, and you know, maybe we look privileged to people on the outside who saw and heard about our lives as ambassador
mm,
children, or my dad wasn't an ambassador, but close enough to it for the assumption of privilege to kick in. Uh, but the privilege, so there's actually one quote that I remember from her paper, that I thought was really, really good, which is the person says something like, maybe we weren't, so maybe we had like the ambassador privileges, like we had grand residencies, servants, stylish cars, which wasn't my case, though we did have servants. Um,
mm.
but she basically says, is this really, are those really the privilege that a developing child needs?
Yeah.
And you go, yeah,
Mm,
that's kind of like, and so that one I found myself thinking for a long time
mm,
after the show. hmm
mm.
What about you?
Yeah.
What's one topic
Um,
that you found
I
yourself
found it
thinking about?
difficult to choose one because many of the stories hit home. I chose the boarding school one with Dr. Cheryl Hartman, the first one.
hmm
It hit home because my daughter went to boarding school.
Right.
And
Right.
especially when we talked about the participants and when it was mentioned that some of the kids were below the age of 9, my heart just stopped because my
Yeah.
daughter went when she was 15. And
Right.
that was young for us. It was a well thought through decision that we took as a family decision. Um, yeah, then you get comments from the outside. So this
Yeah.
all sort of came up again. It gave me sort of like also something to think about because the research indicated that adult relationships reflected the TCK upbringing pattern, which
Mhm.
often moves and frequent changes of friendships. So that includes difficulty in trusting that valued friendships in adulthood would last
Yeah. Yeah.
or could
Yeah.
last, let's say.
Yeah.
And that also these had a tendency to replace friends easily. And
hmm
yeah, I've always been sort of actively trying to assist my daughter to maintain friendships because I'm doing that as well in my personal life as an expat. But yeah, it hit home.
Yeah. I can understand that.
Yeah,
hmm
yeah.
hmm So here's another one. We've listened, we know we've been exposed to many different concepts in this journey so
hmm
far. So what was maybe one of the most challenging concept you had to wrap your head around while preparing or recording for an episode?
I was preparing and recording episode 2 with Dr. Magdalena Mosanya. I had
hmm
to get my head around first the idea of the researching an ecological paradigm in relating to TCKs.
hmm
In the beginning, I had no idea how these concepts could relate and would relate.
Right. Yeah.
Before I could dive into her paper, I had to look up various concepts, pronunciations of them, because I found it very challenging.
hmm
Um, Two that come to mind that you have mentioned before, and you did not butcher them, I might, which was ecocentrism and anthropocentrism.
Right.
Definitely had to look them up and have them printed out next to me.
Right.
But once I got into the paper, I found the idea of TCKs having a multicultural identity, um, and a global mindset and global values that it made, of course, sense to use
hmm
those as predictors of environmental worldviews. And that's exactly what she researched, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So cool. Mm.
she went from the, let's say, often researched and very, very important concept of identity and belonging, she went a completely other round and took it,
Yeah,
make it much, much wider, much broader. And I found that very interesting, very fascinating.
yeah, yeah. Very cool.
What about
Um,
you?
yeah, for me, one of the ones that I thought not necessarily like conceptually difficult to understand, but just like, oh my God, this is such a difficult concept to kind of it's difficult thing to do, you know,
Uh-huh.
was the idea of hybrid transnational identities. So we
Mm,
spoke before about multi-country immersers, right?
yeah,
The doctors Courtney Jaboy and Sanjay Path in episode 8 spoke
yeah.
to us about. Remember these people who live in at least three countries for at least 3 years every time.
Mm-hmm.
And they spoke about how they developed their transnational identities. And what Courtney and Sanjay did is they helped us understand the fact that this identity develops and kind of goes through stages, right?
Yeah.
And when I was looking at those stages, I was like, oh my God, that's a that's a lot for a brain to deal with. You know, like how does a brain do this all this very
Yeah.
complex, this is my identity. So for instance, you know, they mentioned that at one level of the so if you think of this process of making your transnational identity as a line going from left to right, apologies to people listening to cultures where right to left would make more sense,
Yeah.
but if you think about left to right, you know, you have on the one hand you have somebody, let's say, who would say, well, I'm definitely from this country. So let's say I'm from Canada, but I've lived in other countries also, but I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
And then you move on to another step where people are like, well, um, I'm actually from more than one culture. So let's say three
Mm,
cultures. Um, but they're kind of like separate. I'm from those three cultures, this one, that one, that one. And then you move on to another step where it's like, well, I'm from three, but all three at the same time.
mm,
Um, and then you move on to another one where it's like even more blended. You know, I'm from one place. I'm not from one place, but I've got one identity, but it's mixed. Like if you think of a stew with many different ingredients. And I was listening to that going, that's a lot to handle for a brain, you
true.
know, who's trying to just determine how
True.
should I move my body,
Yeah.
and here are people just thinking through this naturally, and I thought,
Yeah.
wow, in terms of like cognition, that's very complex, and so I had
Yeah.
difficulty, you know, wrapping my head around how people get through this and still manage to raise their kids, have a job, and so on. Because you would
Right.
think maybe people go, I have to spend this day thinking about my identity, you know, but they don't. They don't. Mm, yeah. So that would be my
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah. What about, was there a moment when you felt especially proud of what we're creating with these podcasts, with the research podcast,
Yeah.
TCK research podcast?
Yeah, that I mean, after every episode, I was proud. But there's one there, but
Yeah.
there's one moment that stands out, which is uh listeners and viewers may or may not know that I work for a military university institution in Ontario, and so I'm kind
Mhm.
of involved in the world of the Canadian Armed Forces. Although I'm not a veteran or somebody in the military myself, uh, but so I had an email from the Canadian Institute for Military and Veterans Health Research, or CIMVAR for short. And they basically said, hey, we've been listening to your podcast and we want to meet you. And I was like, what? That's cool. I wonder what
Nice.
they, you know. And so I
Yeah.
went there to their offices, and beautiful offices, and I met the leadership there, three people from the leadership, and they started talking to me about what they found fascinating about the podcast. Some were like, I'm actually a military third culture kid myself, and I listened to one of your episodes, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know this existed. And we could do stuff together and we could do research. And I thought, wow, this is so cool. I'm actually so happy and grateful and proud of what we've done so far. And
Hmm.
curious about what will happen once we get to season 2 and season 3
Yeah,
and so on. Yeah. What
exactly.
about you?
Exactly. For me, and when I was preparing for this, were we in this workshop, in this presentation together, or was it only me?
Uh, for the Canadian Institute for Military de
No, no, no,
Silva
no,
thing,
hold on.
only
No.
me.
So let me start. So I'm proud of when our podcast was
Oh, I
mentioned
see what you mean. Yes, yes. Go
at a
ahead.
presentation at the APA, which is the American Psychological Association, which we're both, I
Mhm.
think, members of.
Yeah,
And there was a three-part presentation on TCKs and adult TCKs.
yeah, and we were all.
And
I think we attended all three of them. I think. Yeah,
we
yeah,
yeah, and we were
yeah.
both there. And then suddenly, when the last slide was put up for resources for TCKs and ATCKs, there was our podcast.
Yeah, it was
So
our
I was
little
like,
podcast.
ooh, yeah, that
Yeah,
was our little podcast. So that was the APA Division 52,
yeah, to
which
be
is
recognized
that,
by
yeah,
the American
yeah,
Psychological Association. I think
yeah.
Division
So that was
52.
great.
I think they call themselves Global Psychology or something like that.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you to Dr. Trish Perez and
Yes,
Brendan
Patricia
Kerr, I
Perez.
believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, we
cool.
got
That
to
was cool
meet
to know
them.
that.
So very cool. Very cool to meet all of these interesting people and researchers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we we navigated through many different research topics
Mm-hmm.
during the last year. Uh, and of course, you can think about them all in isolation, but a lot of them also connect. So, are there any connections between different research topics that stood out to you over this year?
Yes, I found a connection between Katja Egerters and Dr. Moishka Sterle's research. So both on expats, episodes 11 and 12, interesting, as they both examine stressors in expat
Actually, we are
families.
11. We are 12. I think you mean 11 and 7. I think
Didn't I say 11 and 7?
you said 11 and
No.
12. This is 12. This is 12. 11
11
and
and
7. Yeah,
7. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So there was a connection there for me. It was both about isolation and support.
Hmm.
No, it both on expats. This is the answer for the next question. I think I've mixed something up. Oops.
Let me restart.
Should
Andrea,
should go into the blooper. Should go into the blooper. Yeah.
are there any connections in different research topics that stood out for you this year?
Yes. So the examine stressors in expat families and the different family members. So
Yeah,
that was mine. What
episode
about you? For
11 and
you,
7.
11 and 7, not
Yeah,
11 and 12, 11 and 7. Hmm.
there's so many of them, of course, but one that really stood out for me is the connection between the work of Claire de Toma, which looked at
Hmm.
the TCK mothers. So episode 5, I think. And the work of Kristen Long, episode 10, who, if you remember, worked on creative arts therapy in TCK children. And you would think that these two things are kind of disparate, not desperate, but disparate, and
Hmm.
they stand on their own. And of course they do. But I like that connection because we often focus on the kid part of third culture kids and not so much on the parenting aspect. But Claire really touched on that parenting aspect because her research was on the parenting, specifically the mothering aspects, right?
Hmm.
But Kristen also, because if you listen to the episode, you'll see that a lot of the way she used creative arts was to get also the parents to play and interact with their TCK kid. And I should say their TC kid, I suppose. Um,
Hmm.
and also to be in a state of attunement, emotional attunement with their child, which is basically where I know what you're feeling and you know what I'm feeling, and we're kind of doing this
Hmm.
dance, this kind of metaphorical dance.
Hmm.
And so I thought that was cool. This connection between uh, parents and third culture kids, and I think the future study should definitely keep looking into that. And so I think think you wanted to move on to question 6, right? Am I
Yeah, if that's
yeah.
possible.
Hmm.
Because I sort of interlink question 4 and 5,
Yeah, that's
unfortunately.
fine with
Yeah.
me. Yeah, it's fine with
Okay.
me.
Perfect. Are you asking, or am I
Yeah, I
asking
guess I'll
the
ask you.
question?
Uh,
You ask, yep.
uh, so what have you personally learned about research communication from from doing the podcast? Because this has been a funny funny adventure, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
interesting. Have you learned anything related to research communication? How do we communicate research?
Yeah. Reading a research paper and understanding it and working with it. If you do your own research, if you write a thesis, if you write a paper, that's when you would sort of encounter and be in a lot of contact with research papers, is very different than translating a research paper for a wide audience.
Yeah,
So the translating is much more work than we thought it would be.
yeah.
It's of course dissecting it, it's reducing it, and then it's translating it into a language that can be understood by, let's say, everyone over how many years would you say? 18
Uh,
years,
w-
16, 17,
yeah, yeah.
however. Yeah.
Let's say
So like
16,
yeah, so
17.
that it's
I doubt if 5-year-olds are
understandable.
listening to our podcast.
No, not yet. Which would be another idea for another podcast.
We need puppets. We need puppets,
PCK
Andrea.
research for kids. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, but that was sort of very interesting.
Yeah,
For you,
there's
what
an
about for you?
expression. Well,
Uh-huh.
there's an expression in science communication which is dumb it down, but don't make it dumb. Which is the challenge,
Yeah.
right? Because you
Yeah,
want to
true.
dumb it down, which means like make it
Yeah.
easier to understand, but don't make it so easy that it loses all value.
Yeah,
That's
true.
a
True.
challenge for
Yeah.
sure. That I think resonates with what you said. Well, I can add to a bit to that. The papers that we read, most of them are like empirical research where people went and they got data about TCKs. And they have a results section where there are statistical analyses and things that the researchers did to the data in order to
Mm-hmm.
process the data. And they use all sorts of complicated terms from different analytical approaches. And we had to make some interesting choices, didn't we? About, well, we won't talk about this or we won't talk about that because uh, we know, listeners, that very few of you, I know there's a few of you out there, but very few of you would get a kick out of listening to statistics, you know? And we
Yeah.
understand and we feel that way ourselves. And so a lot of the work is actually taking either the statistical results, or if the research wasn't necessarily about numbers but did other sorts of analyses, thinking
Mm.
about, okay, what do we take out of this as the main result, the main message, and how do we
Yeah.
deliver this? And I have to say, this is to the credit of the guests because that was the job, basically, to
Mm-hmm.
come up with a way to explain their findings to you and
Yeah.
me and to our audience, in a way that is, again, dumbed down, but not dumb, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
that's always a challenge. It's always a kind of fun thing to say, okay, how can we
Yeah.
communicate this? And what is it that is not worth communicating because it's so precise, but it's not necessarily meaningful, right?
Yeah. Not everybody has to know about it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Folks can
Yeah.
read the papers, of course, if they want the nitty-gritty statistical or thematic analysis data. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, if you think about it, what behind the scenes process or moment helped you grow as a official podcast host or a researcher?
Well, there's a problem with that question because I was already at 100% in terms of my maturity as a podcast host. So I
Oh, of
entered the
course you
process
were. Of course
feeling
you
perfect.
were.
So let's move
Yeah.
on to another question.
Next question.
No, I'm
Okay.
kidding. No, I think listeners would get a kick out of seeing how we basically started from nothing, which
From nothing,
basically,
from
like,
scratch.
can you use Zoom to record actual things and then can you like upload them? And could that be the podcast? And so there was a whole process there.
Yeah.
But a big part of a big process behind the scenes that helped us grow, I think, well, in my case, was to kind of do a debriefing right after every
Mm,
episode. And
yes.
something that often came up for me was how often we thanked the guests, stopped the recording, and then the guest left, and then Andrea and I went, "Oh, we forgot about this," or "Oh, we forgot to ask about that," and then we would write on paper,
Yeah.
"Remember
We
to
write it
ask
down.
where
So
they're
for next
calling in
time.
from." Yeah,
Yeah.
remember to do this, and then gradually
Yeah.
we kind of remembered. But I think every episode we had something that we went, "Oh, we forgot to do this, we
We
forgot to do
forgot.
that."
Yeah.
But hey, you
Yeah.
you keep going, you keep going. What about you?
Yeah, debriefing definitely the best.
Yeah,
Apart from what we sort of wanted to add or make better, it was always once recording stopped, it was
yeah,
always, oh my gosh, this was the best one yet.
that's so true. Yeah, it was so funny. I don't think we'll be able to top this. And then another guest come. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Of course,
It
the
was
idea is not to
always the
compare
best
between guests
episode.
because
Yeah,
they're all
no.
they're all our wonderful episodes.
Yeah,
You
but it
know.
went like one and one and one. After every guest, we thought that was the best. It was
Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
There was never an episode where we stopped recording and then we
No.
went, you know, this was heavy. Should we include this
Yeah,
one? You know, and we're very
yeah,
grateful for all our guests, of course.
definitely,
Um,
definitely.
yeah. So, uh, related to this, if you imagine someone listening to all 11 episodes so far, including this
Mm,
one, the 12th one, in a row,
mm.
maybe not in a row because it'll take you hours, but
Not
you
one
know,
day.
you can space it out, folks. You don't have to. uh, uh, if you imagine someone listening to these 12 episodes in a row, what kind of understanding about TCK research would you hope as the co-host that they walk away with? Yeah.
You know what? My answer doesn't make any sense to me today. Okay, I will
Hmm.
say it anyhow. I think yours will make your sense, but I wrote down
Right.
how little TCK research there is in comparison to expat research. I don't think it answers this question, but I'm sure another one.
Ah, I think it
Um,
does.
Yeah. Well, it's like we have 7 episodes on TCKs and 4 on expats, and then yet. So it might seem we're, of course, more inclined to do TCK research, but we're having a hard time finding papers now because our first goal was to find recent papers. So we found
Hmm.
20, it's difficult to, well, 2025, I think we had
Yeah.
1 or 2. Then 2024, we're very lucky. 2023, so we went sort of backwards chronologically, and we've it's getting harder to find some. It's much
Yeah.
easier to find expat research papers because that's
Hmm.
been done for a long time. But yeah,
Yeah.
so
So
that
so
was yeah,
yeah.
there's
So
something
people
regarding
you'd like
TCK
people to
research.
be aware that there's way more that
Yeah,
there's much more of a need for research on third culture kids compared to
yeah.
expats. I
Thank
think
you for
there's probably a
translating that. Yeah,
financial and a work component to that, right? Because I think
yeah. Also.
organizational psychology has been interested in expats for a while as
Yeah,
working
also,
expats.
I mean, we would work with kids, right?
Yeah,
yeah. So depending on when you do your research on TCKs, it's either when they're older than 18 or when they're younger, then it gets much more complicated.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're right, though. There is way more research on expats, adults expats, than there are
Mm,
on third culture kids. Yeah,
yeah. What
yeah.
about you? What would you think that someone
Well,
listening to all 12 episodes can understand about TCK research?
I mean, I could go very specific, but I'd rather they get some sort of feeling from it, which is how new, novel, and open
Mm,
this currently is. I mean, people should understand, like we know. basically nothing. I mean, we've got some ideas, but we know so little. And every new research is so exciting because it's one piece of the puzzle. And
Mm,
also how diverse the field is. You've got
yeah,
people coming in from education, you've got people coming in from business, you've got people coming in
yeah,
from psychology, you've got people coming in from anthropology, counseling, you know. And so the research is terribly exciting. It's terribly new,
yeah,
which means that it's lacking not in terms of quality, but in terms of productivity of research compared to expat research, as you said. And so I would hope that they walk away with this feeling of like, this is cool. This is like new, exciting. There's an energy here, and I'm going to stay tuned
mm,
to figure out to learn about what other research comes up, or I might even want to get into the research domain myself and do research on third
yeah,
country kids or expats or
yeah,
something. Yeah, definitely.
definitely. Yeah.
So actually, let me ask you this. I know I've asked three times in a row, but this is going to make more sense because I think, uh, what was the funniest or most unexpected moment during
Oh,
a recording?
I had workers here in our apartment and I couldn't change the date. So I went down where we live. There's a business center. No, not a business center,
Mhm.
like a meeting room, which I rented. There was a sign on the door, occupied. We're sitting there, we're recording, and I could, once in a while, I could hear people talking, and then like coming in and then going. And then this time, that I could hear like people approaching and not moving away. And I could
Right.
see sort of out of the corner of my eye, I could see some shadows. It was glass doors, like milked glass doors.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
this lady suddenly opens the door and basically goes, and here's the meeting room. And
yeah.
she
Where
looks
you're
at me
taping the episode.
and I'm going, okay, I'm sure she sees me. She sees that I'm talking and she's going to move out. And then the next thing I hear in Spanish is, please come in and have a look.
Oh no. Here you are taping the episode. She's giving
I
the
was
grand
like,
tour.
and I was like, excuse me,
Oh my God.
this room is occupied.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think you chose the same
Yeah, yeah, because I remember
idea,
that one
right?
because this is an episode where I look at my notes during an episode, and so I'm looking at my notes, and then I look back at the screen, and Andrea is gone. Where is Andrea? Andrea stood up to go talk to the lady to say, "Hey, I'm taping an episode here." But I was like,
Move
"Should we pause? What's going
out.
on? I've lost my co-host." And then she reappears, and I was like, "Woohoo!"
Yeah, that was a
That
funny
was a
one.
funny
That
one.
was
Yeah, I
a
remember that.
funny
I
one.
don't
Yeah.
even know which episode that was in, but that's a funny
Yeah,
one.
I wanted to look that up as well. I forgot completely. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
funny.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah, yeah,
goodness.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you ask one because
Yeah, which episode
I've asked
surprised
so
you
many.
in terms of it's one and one. You haven't asked so many. We're going, we're taking turns. Don't exaggerate. Which
Yeah, sorry.
episode surprised you the most in terms of what you learned?
Yeah, I would say Jenny German Moltz, episode 4, I think, on world schoolers. I come back to this
Mm-hmm.
concept of world schooling and world
Yeah.
schoolers. Because if folks listen to this episode and you can imagine for yourself, I just imagine myself going to my wife and saying, "Darling, let's take the kids out of school and
Also,
travel."
Jennifer would not
Yeah,
listen to Darling, but never
she
mind.
I know, and travel the world. And don't worry about their school curriculum because their travel will be the curriculum. And we'll make it work too, because we'll be kind of in charge of that at the same time. So we'll have them write essays about particular places we go to and particular
Mm.
social events that they observe. And I thought, this is this is so I'm going to say a word, but I don't mean it negatively. It's crazy, but it's the beautiful kind of crazy. It's like, wow, this is like
Yeah.
that's really really cool, but at the same time
Yeah.
scary and like who would do that? So that's one where I was really surprised that people actually do this.
Mm.
I think it takes a lot of just courage and creativity and just kind of let's go energy. And I thought that really surprised me that exists.
Mm, yeah,
What about you?
definitely. For me, it was an episode 6 with Yuima Mitsutani.
Mm,
Gave me a more in-depth understanding of Asian culture, although bearing in mind that I had lived by then in Asia for over 12 years, so
right.
I knew a fair bit, but I hadn't thought about the idea of um, the Confucian Asian culture and the two
Yes.
concepts that you had previously mentioned of filial piety and loyalty, and how
Filial
much.
piety. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you. Butchering words. Here we go again.
Filial piety.
Filial piety. Oh, say it again.
Yeah. Filial piety.
Filial
I
piety.
think
Okay,
you
good.
need to think of a pie. Well, that's how I think
Okay,
instead.
filial
I think in
piety.
terms of
Okay.
pies often.
Yeah. So of course, I think well, I remember sort of the iceberg tip of it, but she went deep into it, and that sort of
Yeah.
was very interesting to me. I learned a lot from that episode.
Yeah, that was a really
Yeah.
interesting one too. Yeah, very
Yeah.
unique, very unique.
Yeah.
One of the things we love is when people come to talk to us about TCKs from different cultures because that's so interesting when the culture bits add
Mm,
to the TCK bits. It's just so interesting. Hmm.
yeah. True. And I think we can just switch questions because that could bring us, what you just said could bring us to question 13, which you are now to ask because we're taking
Hmm.
turns.
Right. Question 13. Which behind the scenes mishap still make you laugh when you think about
Oh my gosh, and I wanted you to answer this first. Okay, I can just say
it?
pronouncing the person's names. Oh
Right.
my goodness.
So
We
many
butchered
times.
some names so many times
We
on the
apologize
podcast.
to all the guests.
Oh, yeah, like mispronunciations. And I remember Kristen, I called her Kirsten in an email, and
Yeah.
Matthew pointed it out, and I was like, no, I didn't. And he's like, yes, you did. I'm like, oh my
You called
gosh.
you called Kristen Kirsten.
Yeah, and I think you
I
pointed
see
out
not even a
I
complicated
called
one.
Yuima, I called her Yumi for whatever reason.
Yui
Oh,
me, yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh
Yeah.
my
To
God,
her
I don't
face
know what
also.
oh, what's your face? Oh my goodness. What do you remember from that?
Well, yeah, I mostly remember. And again, I want to make sure that this doesn't come out as insulting, but it's the beauty of dealing with people
Yes.
from diverse cultures and so on, and having to deal with these complicated sounds that you're not
Yeah,
used to making your own culture. And I would assume it's the same when they deal with the sounds of our names, you know.
of
But
course.
quite often, I found myself before an episode going on ChatGPT,
Yeah.
writing the name of the person and asking ChatGPT to go, where is that name likely from? And
Yeah.
how would a person from that culture pronounce it?
Yeah.
And so I remember there's one name, Moitza,
Hmm.
um, where I typed it in and I say, where would Moitza, no, which is J,
J.
sorry,
J.
Mojca.
Yeah.
And Andrea, you and I called her Moshka for when we
Mm.
spoke about her because we
Yeah.
thought that's what it was pronounced, how it was pronounced.
Yeah.
Then I went on ChatGPT and ChatGPT says, "Oh, this would be pronounced Moitza." And I went, Moitza, but there's not even a
Okay.
Y or a T or an S in there. It's Moshka when it's written. And then we asked Moitza, and she indeed said, yes, it's my name is Moitza. And I thought, wow, I'm glad I
Mm.
asked ChatGPT. And so I remember us
Yeah.
doing this for many different names, just to make sure that we show up, and respect the person because, we
Yeah.
now have the tools within the internet to say, how do you pronounce this? And it's always
Mm.
so wonderful to discover new ways of pronouncing things, and it's so wonderful. You get a sense like you're touching the culture of the person a little bit when you're able to pronounce
Yeah.
their name correctly. I just love that so much. And so to whoever we've butchered their names, we do
Sorry.
apologize.
Oh, we do. We do.
Thank you to ChatGPT. Yeah,
Yeah. And we're also thinking about because we've been doing this now for a year. So there were not only happy moments, there are also stressful moments for you and
yeah,
me. What
yeah.
was one of the hardest and most stressful moment while we were preparing the next episode.
Yeah, so I think uh if I'm right, when we started taping, we kind of taped, I think, 4 episodes
In a
with the idea
row.
that
Yeah.
we would release
Yeah.
one every month. So we had four
Yes.
in the bank, so to say. And then
Mm.
around the fourth or the fifth episode, my wife fell from a ladder onto patio stones, and that kind of
Oh
changed the
my.
whole year because she broke
Yeah.
her pelvis in 2 places. She broke both wrists
Mm.
in the hospital for a week, and she was so we had to get so she wouldn't be able to work anymore for at least a year. I'm happy to report that she's
Yeah.
now much better than she was. But so we had to rent a hospital bed, and the hospital bed went in the living room, and because she couldn't walk, and so I had to feed
Mm.
her. I had to do her toiletry, basically to wash her and so on. And so
Mm.
that was really life just saying, "Hey, I still exist. I don't care about your podcast plans. Here I am,"
Yeah.
and you kind of have to
Here
deal with this.
comes real
Thank
life.
goodness we had 4 episodes in the bank that we could.
Yeah.
And then Jennifer, my wife, I remember at some point, telling me, if it's okay if you want to tape more episodes, we can, you can, isolate yourself for an hour and go tape an episode with Andrea, and
Mm.
I'll be okay. And if something happens, I'll just call you on the cell phone, you know. And yeah,
Yeah.
that was a big moment that could have easily just kind of derailed the whole thing. But I'm so glad that you were there for me and we didn't let it derail, because look at us now.
Look
What
at us
about you?
now. Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
you?
For me, it was. We started in September, then Jennifer's accident happened. I went to Germany in November, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I
End
think
of
it was
October,
September.
November, and I wanted to come home. And I think a week in, my mom got sick. My mom
Mm,
never got sick. She had suddenly
mm,
heart problems in the hospital, intensive care.
yeah,
And we, at some point, we
scary.
thought she wouldn't make it.
Right.
So I extended
Yeah.
my stay, I don't know, 3 times, and I spent in a total of 7 weeks there or 8.
Mm,
Um, yeah, that was also a real life kicking. I can also report that she got out of the hospital, went
yeah.
into um, another care facility for 3 weeks, and then was able to come home. And she's walking again, she's with her walker, she's on medication, which she'd never been before, but she's doing very well. She's gonna turn
Great.
88 next year. So yeah, that
88. Wow.
was that was also like, yeah, like you said before, okay, here comes real life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
somehow
So
we
that'll
we
happen.
managed. Yeah,
That'll
yeah,
happen. Hopefully not a lot of things like that happen in season 2.
yeah. True.
Um, we've already spoken for quite a while here, but maybe we
Yes.
can end on 2 quick questions really quickly. Were there any feedbacks? Because we got some feedback from listeners and viewers, right? Was there any inspirational feedback that touched you during this year?
Yeah. Apart from being in the podcast, I'm not really show offy. So I don't, I should do more of telling people what we're doing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, my best friend in Germany, she was like, I was saying last week, I was saying, well, I'm gonna meet with Mathieu, and she's like, what? Who? And she's like, and like, well, this guy I'm doing the podcast with. And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'll send you the link. And we stopped talking, and I had to I think we were meeting or something. And then she sent me messages going, oh my God, ping, you never told me. Bing. You are a podcast host with subscribers. Bing. I was like, I cannot believe how humble you are. Bing. Why are you not talking about this more?
That's a lot of
Why do
things.
I know this after a year? Bing.
Are we really friends? What else have you been hiding from me?
Yeah. And she's like, oh my gosh, you have subscribers. You are there.
She
You
was
are there. So
impressed.
I
Yeah,
thought, she
that's
was
cool.
impressed. I was like, Yeah, I guess.
That's cool. Yeah, you should. In
And what
Canada,
about
we call it,
you?
we say tooting your horn. You should toot your
Yes,
horn.
exactly. I should definitely toot my horn. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had
Yeah.
quite a few comments on different platforms. One of them that I
Yes.
really resonated with is I have this friend that I met on an online TCK event in the Philippines, and
Mm-hmm.
she wrote a beautiful thing on LinkedIn related to the episode with Magdalena Mosanya on how TCKs configure their identity, you know. And she
Mm,
just, even though the episode was on the link between how they configure their identity and their views and their attitudes about ecology and climate change and so on,
mm,
this friend of mine, Sophie, really resonated with the bit on how TCKs configure their identity, and she wrote about how she had never realized that she could configure her identity in different ways, and that she could say, I am made of all the experiences I have had. I don't have to deny any. And she wrote a beautiful message how she felt this was really freeing for her. And
mm-hmm.
and and I was surprised because I was like, oh, I thought the really cool thing about the episode was the link with your attitude about climate change. But she took one part of that and really like made it her own, and that changed the way that she saw herself. And I thought, wow, this is
Mm.
cool. You never know
Yeah,
how
very
people are going to
cool.
be impacted by
Yeah.
something that you consider to be not a trivial thing, but just a concept in the research, and then you move on to the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
But the big picture to her was one of these concepts. So you never know how people are going to be touched by what you do. And so there's
Yeah.
something wonderful and beautiful in this. Yeah. And so we
True.
always look forward to comments and feedback,
Yes,
positive or
please.
negative, by the way,
Yeah.
from listeners and viewers.
Yeah, as you know,
Yeah.
we love our debriefs. We love learning what to do better for the next episode. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the biggest lesson would you say that you've learned as a podcast host, and what do you hope for next year?
Yeah. I think we probably agree on this.
Yeah, we
Is
do.
this really hit me because I wanted to start a podcast even about things not related to TCKs for years, and I never did. And
Mm,
it's only when I paired up with you and then we said, let's just start it. Let's just
yeah,
do something. Because in my mind, what always stopped me was no, it has to be perfect. You can't
yeah,
put out just a. And what I learned is if you have an idea or a project, just start. Don't
yeah.
wait for it to be perfect. It just needs to be good enough, right? It just needs to be good enough. So many
Mm,
times in my life, I've stopped myself because it needed to be perfect, need to
perfect.
hit this kind of mark that I feel like, oh, I've got it, you know? And
Yeah,
that's just not the way reality works.
yeah,
You will grow in time, and your product will get better over time, or maybe it's just good enough, and that's fine.
yeah.
Do you feel the same way?
Exactly the same way. And I would add, and I've never told you this. 2020, when my daughter was still studying in Boston, um, there was a community place. I don't remember the name where I did different courses. I was there with my daughter for at some point, like for a month or so. So I went to local expat women gatherings, and I went to local courses, and I went to this podcast course.
Oh,
And I
cool.
was all in,
Yeah.
and I was so excited. And I came out so disappointed because the guy basically said,
Okay.
I think he had a bad day, I must say. I think he had a bad day or a
Right.
bad week or
You
was not
just
in
got
his
the guy on
best.
the bed.
Oh my gosh, he was so disencouraging.
Really?
The microphone, well, which microphones? And we went on
Uh,
for 15 minutes about microphones. Yeah, but this
oh,
one
the
is not a
tech.
good one. And this,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Uh,
And then I was like, oh
yeah.
my gosh. So how do you mix it? And then he went deep into nobody understood what he was saying.
Oh no,
And
the editing and
basically,
the mixing.
in the mix, and it's more complicated than you think. I came out to make this long story and frustrating evening short. I came out discouraged and I thought,
Yeah.
I just put this on ice. I will not do this. If it's so complicated,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
then it's too complicated for me. That's not working. So I think if you have an idea and you sort of obviously I didn't let it go because it was still in my on the back burner
Yep.
and in my
Yep.
mind. And
Yep.
if you find somebody who has a similar idea and do it with an accountability partner because we keep each other accountable lots of times
That's
where
right.
it's like
Yeah.
we have our little deadlines, right? Friday 3:30 your time, 2:30 my time, we meet normally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we
Yeah.
don't, then at least we send a message that can we change it to Monday, but we have our little deadlines, we know when we want to get things done.
Yeah.
You hold me accountable, I hold you accountable. I think it helps a lot if you do it with somebody.
Yeah, I agree.
If you know yourself and you know that you're gonna have a hard time to get started, I think it's good to get an
Yeah.
accountability partner.
Accountability is crazy powerful. It's
It's
really, really
great.
powerful.
It's great.
Yes. And so let's hold each other
Yeah.
accountable for another
Yes.
season at least. So what do we
Yeah,
got coming up
exactly.
for what should folks
Oh,
be
expect.
expecting for this new season? Um
Okay, we have written down the following. Um, one is about I love you for TCKs.
yes. Oh my God, Andrea, are you declaring your love for me?
No, no, I am definitely not. I
What's
have
going
a
to, what do you mean?
husband.
Definitely not.
No, I have a husband. That's enough. I don't need another yeah,
Correct.
complication in my life. No, no.
Love as a friend.
And you have a wife.
But
That's it.
this is correct. So we found this research paper that's brand
Yep.
new, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from a linguistic perspective, where the researcher analyzed how TCKs use the terms "I love you" in what context and how it resonates with them. This should be fascinating.
Yeah,
So we look
I
forward
think
to
so too.
bringing listeners that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the other one that I sort of quickly looked into was hypersensitivity in expat moms. So
Yes.
how educating your child as a highly sensible person in a foreign country can be to your advantage.
Yes. There's some
Yeah.
wonderful research that just came out about
Mm-hmm.
hypersensitive expat moms. There's some research where we're in touch with the researchers to come and speak to us about how TCKs, whether or not, and if so, how do TCKs grow up to be better expats, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
less problematic expats in business terms. I mean,
Yes,
more
in the
adapted
business
expats.
environment. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
basically, is there an advantage to hiring adult third culture kids if you're an employer who's looking to send people abroad for, a business posting or something
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah.
Uh, we're also looking at branching beyond the published papers and
Mm-hmm.
going into theses because uh, there's a lot of brilliant research that's done, but that's never necessarily published in research papers because people do their thesis and then they move on, they get a
Yeah.
job, and publishing is very, very hard. And so there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of research sitting there that's been done that's wonderful, but that won't make it necessarily into peer-reviewed papers. One of them, for example, is on neurodiversity in third culture kids. So there's a wonderful
Mm-hmm.
thesis by Brooke Burnson, who I believe now is in Paris at the American School in Paris, I believe. And
Mm-hmm.
she did a study looking at autistic third culture kids and their
There you
experiences
go.
and so on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to bring that to you, listeners and readers. And were there also people that we met in an event related to thesis about arts?
There was one, yes, TCK and
Hmm.
art therapy, art and music therapy, right? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. We have to
yes,
look
yeah,
into those theses and yeah,
yeah.
work on those to bring them to the
So we've got a
audience.
lot coming, including some more special guests, and we do not mean me and Andrea. That joke was done at the beginning of the episodes.
That's
Uh,
old.
Although I have been wondering, Andrea, because I do TCK research, but I haven't published mine yet. But when I do publish mine, do I get to go on my own podcast? And if so,
Yes, yes.
who's
I
gonna
will interview
co-host?
you. No one.
You'll need
I
a
will do
guest
it. I'll
co-host
do
or so,
that.
or you'll do it by yourself. Okay,
Okay.
cool.
I'll take your wife, Jennifer.
Or yeah, we could have a guest co-host.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we got to. All right.
Yeah,
So,
perfect.
Andrea, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, it has been and continues to be a pleasure working with you on this
Same.
crazy little project that we had.
Mm-hmm.
Who do we want to thank? We want to, maybe we can go one after the other. I want to start by thanking the guests. Thank you
Yes.
very much to all the guests that came on. We really do appreciate the time you gave to us.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you have your lives, you have your work, you have your kids in some sense, and in some context. Sometimes the dog was barking, you know,
All
and
coming in.
so we really do appreciate all the guests that came in.
Yes,
Who
and
else do
also
we
who
want to
gave
say a
us a
thank you to?
chance. Also who gave us a chance because our podcast was non-existing by the time we sent out the first invitations. So yes, thanks for
Correct.
giving us a chance and for being willing to be our research podcast guinea pigs.
Yes, in a
Yeah.
sense.
Okay,
Mhm,
let's
mhm.
not make the list too long. Family members, yes, of course, who sort of set up a
Oh,
set keep
we
out
don't
of the
need to give
room
us
while
an
we're
Oscar
recording.
speech. Yes,
No,
that
no, no,
is
let's
true.
not give an Oscar speech. Yeah. Who leave us alone when we're recording.
Yes, including sometimes some very hungry kids that are like, when is he done? When's dinner ready? Which was my case.
Exactly. Take that food, Dad.
Yeah, and we also want to thank, of course, the listeners, because we're doing this for you, listeners
Yeah.
and viewers. Uh, those who listen and watch, even if you don't comment, we still thank you. Those who comment, we also thank you. Those who get in touch with us more
Mhm.
privately, so not as a comment, but as an email, you know. Thanks to all of you. And if I had a glass of champagne or something, no, I would pop
I can
open
take
the
my
cork.
rose again.
Yeah, there you go. And I would say,
Okay. For
happy
you,
first
Mathieu.
anniversary.
Yes.
Happy first anniversary. And here's to the next season. Here's to year two.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
thanks for being such a great co-host, Mathieu. This
Thank
was
you.
really
Thank you as
an
well.
enjoyable experience.
Awesome. All right, everybody. We will see you on the next episode of the TCK
Yep.
Research Podcast. We have no idea who's coming on, but it'll be a great episode. We promise. Bye, Andrea. See you next time.
Bye. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the TCK Research Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. Please subscribe, like, and share our podcast and leave us a review. It really helps others find us. If you have any questions or comments, please write to us at tckresearchpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and we promise we'll answer all emails. We wish you a good day wherever you are, and we hope you'll join us again for the next episode.